I'll go first.
Ladies first.
My name's Stephanie Umo, and I am currently playing Angelica Schuyler in the Angelica Tour of Hamilton. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, but I am basically residing in New York City area.
Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Oakley Stovall, and I play George Washington in the Angelica Tour of Hamilton. I'm born and raised in Chicago, which is where I'm currently taking this call from, at my home in Chicago.
Tyler.
My name is Tyler Bello. I play Hercules Mulligan James Madison in the Angelica Company, and I'm originally from Long Island, New York.
And I am Josh Tower, and I play Aaron Burr in the same tour, Angelica Company, the first national tour. And I grew up outside of Philadelphia and have been in New York for quite a long time. And I'm upstate. I'm in the mountains of New York in the Catskills right now, so avoiding any hurricanes, hopefully. Students, go!
I guess I can go first. My name is Zach. I am going at the University of Minnesota Crookston. I am originally born in the cities. I was raised in Africa and Italy. I am a senior. This is my last semester.
Yeah, I can go next. My name is Abdullah Ali. I go by Abdi. I use pronouns like he, him, his. I am a student at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I was originally born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya, in a small town called Cecile. This is my senior year at UMD, and I'm really excited to be on this call with you all. And I really do love Hamilton, so great job on that.
Go next. My name is Chandi Katoch. I'm a senior student right now at the University of Minnesota Rochester. I'm pre-med, so I want to go into emergency medicine. I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota, and I also have thoroughly enjoyed Hamilton on Disney Plus.
Nice.
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy. Use pronouns like she, her, and hers. I'm a student at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. This is also my 4th year, so finishing up this year in the midst of a pandemic. Was born in Boulder, Colorado, but grew up around the Twin Cities my entire life.
And I am Julia Scoville. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am actually a junior at the Morris campus. And I was born and raised in Apple Valley, Minnesota, so right around the cities.
Well, I mean, I can tell you when I first voted, I remember feeling very overwhelmed, going into the booth and seeing names and little flags that you had to flip and all kinds of stuff. It was a while ago, but I remember feeling overwhelmed and feeling a great sense of, okay, if I don't do this, someone who I don't want in office is going to get in office. So there was all of that. There was a responsibility. There was an overwhelming sense of responsibility and maybe a little bit scared, afraid. But I did it, and I remember feeling very powerful after it was done. Just like, whew, it's done, and I did it. And I can't remember. I don't think the person I voted for won, but they didn't. But it felt good. It felt really good.
So my first vote was kind of the opposite of yours, Josh. It was kind of underwhelming almost, since I didn't go to any booth or anything like that. I was just sitting in the study lounge on Gay 2-3, and my friend and I were doing homework, and I was like, hey, while you're here, will you sign this to be my witness while I vote? And then it was done, really. I just dropped it back off at the post office. It was super quick, super easy, and it's kind of weird that it wasn't this big deal, but looking back at it, it was really nice to just have it be something so casual.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. First time I voted was actually it was in 2016. That was the first time I was legally allowed to vote. And I remember just that election as a whole was very high tension. And I felt like it was my civic duty, in a sense, to make it to the polls, in a certain sense, And I think that I remember feeling accomplished. That was the feeling I felt, you know.
My first time voting was actually also the 2016 presidential election, which was a huge one, and the first one after I turned 18 and was able to vote. And that year I also worked as an election judge as well, and happened to be placed at the location where I was also registered to vote. So I think I was maybe the first person in that location to submit my vote, and it was easy, but it was definitely a long day. The polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the whole day was just filled with so many emotions, I think. And it felt like a very democratic and important process for me, having just turned 18.
I also voted for the first time in the 2016 election. I remember being a little bit nervous, but when I got to my polling location, the poll workers were super helpful. And I even knew some of them, which was kind of cool. Some of my friends from high school had signed up, so it was nice to see some familiar faces. And then after I turned in my ballot, I remember flexing the I voted sticker so hard. Like Instagram, Twitter, all my social media was filled with it because I was just so proud to have voted in such a monumental election.
I actually skipped my first opportunity to vote, I will admit, because I let intrafamilial arguments, I felt differently than my parents. And I made the mistake of letting that stop me and feel like my rebellion would be to not participate, because we felt differently about the candidates and where the country was going in general. And so it was the next election where I realized, when I was further away from my parents, that it was my decision, it was my power. I remember it being very easy, unlike how complicated it gets today. And I think I'm on the same page with Julia. It just kind of went by, and I didn't realize, even until maybe my third or fourth time voting, that the civic duty part that Tyler talks about, then that started to drum into me as I became more of a citizen of the world, and I understood, oh, my voice actually matters. So yes, I'm admitting I skipped that first one.
For me, my first time voting was when I just moved to my university. So it's kind of weird being in a new place and then having to go to a place I've never been to go and vote. But it was super simple. You just walk in, do a couple things, sign some paper, get out. And that's it.
Is it same day registration in Minnesota? Great.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have not participated in an election yet, just because of my age. I did not participate in the 2018 election as well, just because of the place I was at the time. I was actually out of the country, and that was the last thing I was thinking about at the time. But I do want to talk about the first time I actually ever practiced in a democratic environment, and that was in high school. I went to a primarily white school, and my school was very, at the time, it was the 2016 election. It was my senior year, and I decided myself to run for student council. This was because there was a lot of anti-Semitic issues at our school. There were a lot of disparities amongst students of color and non-students of color. And I felt like it was my duty to stand up and do something about that. So I gathered some of my friends that were of color, and we said, let's run. And that was the first time I ever participated in voting. And while it was small and it wasn't something that was as a large scale, voting for our actual representatives or our senators or our presidents, and judges and other elected officials, it was important to me because it was really a time for our school to make a shift, and it needed better student leaders to be able to do that.
I can go first on this one because it'll piggyback off of this schism that was between my parents and I. When I told them that I didn't vote, they were more disappointed in that than that I felt a different way. because they were children of the civil rights era. And so that was also part of how it got solved when they said, listen, we can fight. You can go vote for the opposite side. That's okay, we'll work with that. But what we won't abide by is that you don't participate because we fought so hard for you to just have the opportunity to express your opinion. So it's important to me because it's important to them, and they fought so hard. You know, they were in that same generation as the John Lewis, Ella Baker, Bayard Rustin. So that's why it's important to me, because they fought so hard.
To add to that, I think that it's important that I speak to you from the scope of I am you guys. We are the youth. We are the future, and our vote matters immensely. When you think about it, only logically, as time progresses, there will only be more and more young people. And if we get into the mentality that we shape our future, then we're onto something, and it's cooking. Because no matter who you vote for, if you educate yourself on, like Josh said, if you educate yourself on who is in office or who is running for office, and you absolutely do not align yourself with who is running or who is currently in office, either way, it is your civic duty as young people to shape your future. We have to shape our future, because at the end of the day, we know what type of society we live in, and we have to remember us before we let somebody else remember us, because that's when we run into a problem. We feel like we do not have to vote. But the issue is, the moment we turn 18, we should be registered and we should be voting, because without that, then we are letting other people continue to choose what we want. And we can't complain about it if we don't, as young people, make the effort to change our society. So that's why I think you should vote.
That's exactly how I feel too. You know, it's like people will sit there and complain about what their representative is doing, or their senator or their president, and then it turns out that they didn't vote. And that is really tough to see, because a vote is more than just what you think you deserve. It's what you think your community deserves. And I think that it's really important to think about the community and think about even more local representatives as well, because people like to talk about what's going on in their area, and it's pretty easy to stay informed about what's happening at the national level. But when it gets down to the local, where it really hits home, people just don't keep up with politics as much there, especially young people. So especially in midterms and elections like that, it's really important to turn out to vote, because that's the first place that your voice starts, is with your vote.
I'll just add in before anyone else says anything. I'm in Chicago. Julia and the rest of you, I think, are in Minnesota currently. Yes. So what happened with George Floyd, what's happening with Jacob Baker, the 17-year-old who just committed those horrible atrocities, was actually in Illinois and crossed the border into Minnesota. So, and you heard what the sheriff has had to say. So these local elections, the sheriff, the mayors, and we're feeling it intensely in the Midwest right now, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota. So bravo, Julia, Tyler, that's exactly what we need to be focusing on.
Yeah, and I mean, to add on to that, I think, looking back on history as well, you go to Bloody Sunday, the March on Selma, and at the end of that bridge, at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, there's the Voting Rights Museum there. And that was when I really understood the meaning of, the understanding of why it's so important to vote.
And to continue on that, when you said we as the people, I think about the preamble. We, the people of the United States, meaning the country, the government, the entity belongs to the people. And I think that has a pretty profound effect on me when I think about the importance of voting, because, we get to choose who we want to represent us to the rest of the world. We get to choose who comes up with policies concerning social policies, economic policies. We decide. And, that is the only way we can is through voting, the only way. And that is why it is so important to do it. And, regardless if you feel you're affected by it or not, you are. You are affected by it. And yeah, so it's truly just the only single way to have a voice in the government and the shaping of our country.
Going off of what Stephanie says, I think we could agree that we get to choose who lives, who dies, and who tells our story by who we vote for. And I think it's one of the most empowering things that we can do. We've all kind of hinted at that. But also, voting kind of ensures that you can live your life and not be worried about what's going on in office, that you can focus on your career, you can focus on your future, and trust that the people that you voted for can do the work that you need to continue to live your life.
And it gives you a sense of maybe not serenity if it doesn't go the way you want, but if you do vote and the person you vote for doesn't win, okay, you swallow that pill and move on. It's a whole different thing if you don't participate. Then there's always that what if in your head. There's that bitter pill to swallow. So yeah, it's not that voting will mean you will get what you want. But I think what Stephanie's saying is by voting, you are participating in the group.
It is our duty, like I was saying, to know who our district attorney is, who our circuit attorney is, and to know what that means and what they do. And if you don't, if criminal justice and criminal reform, police reform is something that you are interested in, look up the records of your current district attorney, your current circuit attorney, and it is then your job as a citizen to decide whether or not you like what they have done or if you are against what they have done. I can share something personally. When I was younger, I've lost family members to gun violence before, and there is something that comes of it with the family. You don't really know what exactly the justice will be served, and usually it's not what you want. But what I am saying is, we vote for district attorneys, and I didn't know this up until about a year ago. We vote for these people, and we decide that it's not as important as our national election, but in fact, it is of equal importance. And I think that if there's anything that I want to drive home, it's that you know who your local officials are, because they affect your life immensely, so much that they don't want you to know, it seems like. So voting is very important, and knowing who you vote for is very important.
For me, my mother, she's an immigrant. She came here 30 years ago. She lived in the US multiple years, not being able to vote and just having to be a bystander to things going around her until she got her green card. And she is a very, very big advocate for her children to vote. She is very aggressive in making sure that we vote, bribing us if she even has to. So it's just that's like why voting is important to me. It's also like a way you can, like all of you guys have said, just get your voice out there and affect your community and everyone around you.
Yeah, and like that's the same case for me, Zach. And I think one of the biggest things that I always like to think about, especially when it comes to our beautiful democratic process here in America, because it's nothing like this in other countries, especially where I came from. And here especially, no matter class, gender, or anything, race, you get one vote. You have one opportunity to cast your ballot, and you get to pick who you want to represent you. And I think that to me is just amazing, because it's nothing like anywhere else, it's beautiful here, and we need to cherish that, and we need to exercise that as much as we can.
I know for me, my roommate is somebody that didn't vote, even though I tried telling him for weeks leading up to the latest election to vote. He says that his vote won't matter no matter what, and that it's just a waste of time for him. But he's also a person of color, so it's kind of confusing, since like 50 years ago there were thousands of people protesting to give us this right to vote, and then he just doesn't want to just just voice it. And yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's what I hear a lot too. I hear a lot of like, oh, my vote won't matter. It's only one vote. But, well, you might think that, okay, that's fine. But you also have to recognize that if you're thinking that, a lot of other people are thinking that. And so that's a lot more people that aren't going to end up voting. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that that idea is kind of bigger than themselves.
This is actually a subject that is something that's continuously ongoing at my house, because I also have a friend that does not want to vote. And it's crazy because like you can see the frustration in his eyes. He wants to vote, but he doesn't want to give his vote to someone he doesn't, keyword, completely, agree with or feel like completely represents him. And I understand where he's coming from, because time after time, we get these primary elections and we get these candidates that are put in front of us, are a two-party system, right? And it's really hard to pick from that. You only get two people to pick from. And and if you look at the top of the ticket, none of those people look like me, and that's hard to really relate to. So I really think that when it comes down to young voters, it's that frustration of not having someone to really relate to, or have someone even in the same, even close to the same generation, to understand what struggles you are going through as a person, and what day-to-day things that you have to either attend to or really get to,
I think we all agree with that, Avi. And, to make this call worth its weight in the time we're spending, I'm very interested in hearing from you guys. Like, what do you say to your friend or colleague when they make this argument? Because it is one that you can't denigrate them for feeling that way. I'm years old and I feel that way. So what do you say to the person? Or what do we say to the person to say, yes, I hear you, but?
I think voting is a really crucial step to just the democratic system, and being able to voice your opinion on policies and the way that our country is governed. I think there are also a lot of ways to stay civically engaged. You can go out and canvass, you can volunteer, and in some ways looking at voting as this entire, I think, system that's not just once every 4 years you go and vote for the president. It's every year there are local, state, federal offices that you can vote for, and even beyond the actual November period, there's so much work you can do to engage in policy work and engage in these offices. And I think looking at voting as one piece of this, and a very important piece of this, but still showing all these other opportunities get involved is important. And then when voting comes on, it's kind of the big hurrah.
And if I were to add, to what you were saying, I also, so I'm only 22, so I have friends who feel the same similar way, who don't want to vote because they, as young people, we don't truly identify with either of the main candidates. And that doesn't just go for young people, but I'm speaking especially for young people. We don't fully identify with what they believe in. But the one thing that I will say is I've been seeing this meme or tweet going around saying like, we as people should vote, because voting doesn't mean we're going to get what we want right away. It means that we're going towards the direction we want, right? But then you can have a gripe with that as well. You know what I'm saying? I feel as if the most important thing is, I feel like young people that truly feel like their vote, like if they vote for one or the other, it's a feeling of guilt, because if something bad happens and we vote for somebody that we don't truly want, and then they go against what we believe in, we feel guilty. But that is not what we need to feel guilty about. We do not make their specific decisions. We garner our ideas, and we push what we want, and we push them to be better. And that's why our democratic system is so beautiful, because every 4 years we can vote them out if they are not doing what we like. So I feel as if something that no one really speaks about is this guilt that we feel. The guilt that if you vote for somebody and they don't truly believe in what you thought they believed in, or even at all close to what you believe in. And you can own up to your mistake, but at the end of the day, don't feel guilty for doing something that you thought would truly better society, because no vote is worse. No vote is worse. Whoever you vote for, I truly, that's none of my business. It's none of my business. But what I do believe is voting should make you feel empowered and not guilty. And I think that's something that young people feel they don't really feel, because it is a guilty feeling going against your friends. We have a lot of friends that the people empower, they have hurt. They have hurt them, they have hurt things that they believe in, they don't believe in what we believe in. But we are moving in a more progressive way or not. Whatever we decide to do, it's our decision and we should not feel guilty about it. We should empower ourselves to trust our decisions in those moments, and so on and so forth.
I would like to add really quickly, for the young voters who think that their vote doesn't count or doesn't matter, let's take it back a couple of elections ago. Obama's reelection, it has been credited to millennials, and I'm a millennial. His reelection was credited to the millennial vote, the young vote. He got 67% of the young vote that year. 67%. His reelection was credited to the millennial vote. So if you see how actually important the young vote is, it is extremely important. The reason why also is because people from 18 to 24, with each generation that goes by, you become more diverse. You become more opinionated, and there are more children from immigrant families. There are more children. There are more people mixing, and ideas are mixing, and the importance of that, to apply that to our politics, oh my gosh, it's so mighty. It is so mighty. So if you think your vote doesn't matter as a youth, it's actually one of the most important votes in our country.
And like when it comes down to the young vote, I like to think of it like a snowball effect, right? As young people, we're energized. We're starting to become more educated. We're getting further in our career, our passions and things, and we need to transcend that into our vote. Whether it's you might not completely agree with the person, but and this is what I try to tell my friends that disagree with, why should we vote? It's more than just you. That's what it comes down to. Your vote, you're casting a vote for immigrants. You're casting a vote for people that don't have the opportunity to vote, or and you're casting for the smaller guy or the smaller person. And that's what I like to think about. Whether it's picking the lesser evil at some point, but you have to do it. You have to be part of the process.
And you're also, just to dovetail, you're voting for all those people who died so that you could vote. Whether you want to say it's from the founding fathers, those people who marched over the bridge in Selma, took the march, who fought, who protested, who boycotted. On the shoulders of all those people stands your individual vote, your chance that you would have never had if any of those people would not have fought and said, this is not right. You have a choice, and we have the right to vote. Paul, you should take this first.
Well, I definitely think George Washington would be, especially in his retirement, would be that crazy uncle who would be, you kids get out there and make it happen. We fought and fought, and he would be one of the original voices of, there's a reason we fought so hard to make this happen so that you could have everything that you want. Now, we have to keep in mind, without belaboring it, that, Stephanie Umo never could have voted back then. Like, all the people on this panel couldn't have voted back then. So I almost want to kick it to Tyler, because it's the Sons of Liberty, for me, that teach us the most in the play Hamilton about what it means to organize, what it means to not just be passionate about what you want, but organize. You know, they were swashbuckling heroes, but they were organized. Okay, they were going tavern to tavern, neighborhood to neighborhood. They stuck together. They helped each other. They knew what district each one. You know, Lawrence was good in the South and the Carolinas, and they knew who could do what. Marquis de Lafayette brought a new way of thinking from France. And, you know, these guys were 18, 19, 20 years old, lest you forget. That's how old these young people were. So I think Hamilton mostly can teach you that there is no age too young to organize and take hold of the reins and say, this is what we want, this is ours, we are adults, give it to us, or deal with the consequences.
And so much so that they took it upon themselves to write the way it was that they wanted their country to be. So much so that they wrote thousands and thousands of pages, you know, cumulatively, about how this nation should be and how they wanted it to be ideally.
Yeah, I mean, George
They were willing to
Washington,
die for it. They were willing to die for it.
Signed off on a lot of stuff, but it was Burr, who was very young. You know, he was closer to their age.
Absolutely, yeah.
Burr and Jefferson and Madison, they were writing this stuff. And George Washington was like, yeah, that's a good idea. You know, let me get off my horse for a minute and come sign that and be yeah. You know, he was someone I looked up to, who I think, you know, they found, to go back to the conversation of finding a candidate that we like, he certainly was that, I think, for back in the day, for everyone. They all kind of looked to him and said, you know what, George, good, okay, let's get George. We all like him. I think that was a true thing too. I don't think there were rebel factions within the Sons of Liberty who didn't like him. Maybe Jefferson, you know,
maybe Lee.
Well, also, I want to talk a little bit about the Senate and the House, and how that came about, and how that is the responsibility of, or that is the result of Hamilton and Madison and Jefferson. So Hamilton was basically responsible for the Senate, which Hamilton was a bit of an elitist in that way. He thought the Senate, he thought that people should, whomever decides who controls the White House, are the more educated, wealthy people should decide that. And then you had Madison and Jefferson, who I guess in a way represented what we can call the farmers. So the farmers were the hardworking people, the not, we could see as blue collar people today, maybe, you know, versus white collar people. So I would say that's, you know, a way that we're still seeing that play out today. But so they were responsible for the House. And the reason why that's important is because you have the Senate and you have the House, and they're kind of usually dueling. And that's important because it doesn't give power to one sole idea in the government. So you have these two houses that are constantly conflicting, and it's still true today. I mean, you have, look at our House and Senate, and they're always constantly fighting to gain control of that. And also, I think what came of that era, what is so important, is the power of the vote. So what these people need to convince you to vote for them, right? So they have to work for your vote. They have to earn it. And that is still true today. You know, you have to remember that. Like, don't just hand somebody your vote just because, well, that's who your parents are voting for, or that's whomever. You have to educate yourself in that, and realize that your vote is powerful in that way, and make them earn it. Make them earn it. For an example, right now, I'm kind of going off a little bit. Like, right now, you know, some important issues to me are which candidate is going to talk about Black Lives Matter? Which candidate is going to talk about police reform? Which candidate is going to talk about what they're going to do for Black people in this country? That's important to me. And I'm watching both conventions, RNC and Democratic convention, to see who is making that a priority for them. And that is how I will apply my vote. And that is, I think, how Hamilton, Madison, and Jefferson set up this country, so that you have these two opposing ideas, and even more than one. You know, many parties are allowed to be involved, but so that no one idea has control over the country. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, to boot off of that, taking things directly from the show, you know, this line is used so much, but, you know, if you stand for nothing, you know, what are you falling? You're falling for nothing. What are you falling for? So I think that the show as a whole reintroduces this idea to our population that voting isn't, well, this is who this person is voting for, and this is who this person is voting for, or like just making it a very minuscule thing. It is very important, and if whatever you stand for is who you're going to align yourself with. Not to get into any particular issues, but whoever you vote for is an extension of what you truly believe in. And I think that if there's anything from Hamilton that you can take out of it, it's that you have to fully believe in something for it to matter. We see it. I mean, I don't know if we see it in the show. And that's why Hamilton endorsed Jefferson. Whatever Jefferson believes, he believes it. He doesn't go back on what he believes in. He doesn't change it. He believes in what he believes in. And I think that it's very important, and it draws the line in the sand for whatever you believe in. If you take a look at whoever is a potential candidate, and it's something that they tend to follow. Sometimes they don't, but the best candidates stand for something and they don't sway on it. So I think that that's the most important thing that I would take from it. And my character, Mulligan Madison, I think that the most important thing is they were willing to die for this country. And we should have the same energy about voting, because if we do not vote, our democracy dies. Voting is the single most important thing in our country. It is the only thing that truly separates us from other countries. Like I said, like there's almost nothing like this. One vote counts. My vote counts as much as Jeff Bezos' vote. And that is, you know what I'm saying? So my vote and Jeff Bezos' vote are equal, whether or not the amount of money we have. And I think that it's really important that we stand for something and what we believe in at this point.
I just want to say, I think Angelica would say, look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. And I know I'm pulling from the show in the corniest way possible, but truly that line rings out to me right now in such a big way, because we right now, especially this year, we are seeing a huge shift in our core beliefs in this country, what you feel is right and wrong. And that is coming to question on November 4th. And how lucky, truly how lucky we are to be a part of that, to decide what the next 4 years of our lives are going to look like, and potentially longer, So I just think we should feel it's cool. It's lucky. Like, we get to be a part of that. History has its eyes on you.
And with some Supreme Court choices, beyond 4 years.
Voting is important to me because it's a way for anybody in the country to have an impact on the history of the nation. And it's also a good way of utilizing the right that our forefathers and sisters fought for years and years ago.
Voting is important to me because I do believe we're in a really pivotal point of history right now. I know someone just mentioned the line of history has its eyes on you, and I think it truly does. And in 10, 20, 50 years, I hope we're able to look back at this crucial moment of being in a pandemic, reimagining what community safety looks like, really just all these areas, and understand that we were on the right side of history and making the change that we wanted to see happen.
For me, voting is important because a lot of times when young people start action, older voters or politicians kind of shut them down, and because they're just kids, but they can't do that to our vote. They can't shut down our vote. So that is one way that we can make sure our voices are heard and seen as adults and as people who have an equal say in this country.
I feel as if voting is important to me because it is a way to pay respect to the people who fought for our rights in the past and pave the future for those that come after us.
Yeah, That's well said. Voting is important to me because no matter race, class, or gender, my vote weighs the same as anyone else, and it is my duty to exercise that to the fullest.
Voting is important to me because although many politicians and adults will say it is a right, not a privilege, it is not guaranteed. As John Lewis said, it can be taken away. You have to fight for it, especially for marginalized people. So voting is important to me because it's not a guarantee. It is a living, breathing thing that we have to continue to fight for.
Voting is important to me because I would like to have people who look like me, who share similar experiences as me, and who share similar values as me to be making laws and creating policies that will impact not only myself, but future generations.
Voting is important to me because I feel if we want to protect our democracy, then we need to exercise our right to vote on every single level. So protect your right to vote by voting.
Yeah, voting is important to me because I feel, as a veteran especially, I feel the need to stand on the shoulders of, those founding fathers and those brothers and sisters who, have died, who've shed blood on a battlefield, on bridges, on buses, in neighborhoods, so that we could have this opportunity to vote. I have brothers who are being deployed as we speak right now. One was supposed to join me today, and he's being deployed overseas to fight. You don't even know where he's going, but there's still stuff going on that we have to protect. And this is a very special country, and you have a chance to keep it special and to always keep it special. And it is this vote, any vote, is your one chance to do just that.
Josh, I just want to say real quick, it's not that I forget, but sometimes I need to be reminded that you're a veteran, and thank you for your service. And, that just always kind of hits me when you mention it, in whatever conversation we're having, and especially today. So thank you.
Thank you. In our nation, all voices matter. Visit z.umn.edu/votes to register or request your absentee ballot. Be a voter.